Hey guys, I'm Nick with Bible and Bodybuilding, and today we're talking training variables. Now, I felt it important to have this conversation or to make this presentation because I feel that most of the conversation regarding bodybuilding and training in fitness YouTube and social media at large is of the least useful kind. This is what I mean. It's always uncontrollable variables, gimmicky hyper niche exercises, magic pills, genetics, and PEDs. I intend to discuss the most useful aspects of training, actual, controllable, actionable training variables. I've ordered them in a hierarchy by tiers of importance. You'll find that as we go down the tiers, concepts, while decreasing in sheer importance, will increase in complexity, which is also a rule you'll find often as you interact with fitness content. If it's really, really complicated or really complex, there's all these very specific details. It's not usually for the beginner, the novice, or even the early intermediate. Typically, these very complex principles or concepts are reserved for those who have been training for a very long time and they're either trying to move into their advanced stage or they're in their advanced stage of training and they're trying to deepen their bag and take their physique even further. For most of us, and for most trainees, the simple stuff is usually the most crucial. I hope you guys enjoyed this presentation. I definitely enjoyed putting it together. If you don't take in all the concepts on the first go, that's fine. Feel free to revisit them as you build training experience. Or save this and watch for later as a refresher. Whether you watch this piece by piece or in one go like an audiobook, I hope you enjoy it and that it will be a blessing. Now, here is our hierarchy structure. It's a somewhat unorthodox shape, but I believe that this structure can make sense for the training variables and concepts that we'll be discussing today. Feel free to take a quick screenshot of it as a guide or just to keep stuff in mind. Let's get started with tier 1, identity. This is your personal sense of self, who you are and where you're going. Without identity, you'll have no sense of direction, shape, or basis to mold your character in your training journey. Who are you on the inside that you want to make manifest on the outside? This is your identity when it comes to training. Tier 2, program or the program. The plan or structure that your training is based upon. It is your schematics, your blueprint. Much like identity, without a program, you'll be adrift and directionless, without a method to move through to discern or assess whether you're progressing toward your goal. Now, if you're making a building, you need to already have a plan for where certain pipes are going to go and so on. City planning, anything that you're trying to build, unless it's some abstract art, you need to have a game plan to assess if you're actually making progress toward that shape or toward that building that you're trying to build. So that's your program, composed of exercises, sets, reps, training frequency, rest, recovery, you name it. We're going to go deeper into those concepts as we go along. But remember, tier 2 is your program or your plan. It is of the second most important to your training journey. Tier 3, consistency and adherence. Regardless of how fast or slow a move, whether you're taking steps, leaps, or in a full-blown sprint towards your goal, you'll never reach your goal if you stop moving. And in life, we're all on a constant, slow-moving conveyor belt. If you stop moving, you'll stagnate in the short term or make regressions in the long term. Adhering to your program will make sure you have reliable progress markers and you're not just taking random actions and wondering why you're not where you want to be. Tier 4, effort. One of the greatest determining factors for who will stay the same and who will experience remarkable transformations. No natural lifter can obtain a great physique without working hard. Plain and simple. If you're a natural, unless you put that effort in, your body is not going to be forced to transform. Form consistency and precision. Standardized, repeatable form within a reasonable placement between stank form and immaculate form, or cyborg form. Exercise selection can play a role in the ease of compliance with form consistency / precision, but we will likely go into just how in this video. If you can increase your reps or the quality of your sets or increase the weight with the same standard of form consistency / precision in each rep of a exercise that you do, that is a clear metric for improvement / progress. Tier 5. This is, I call the tonnage tier. Now, one of the first of the three pillars of tonnage is intensity. Overall exertion put into your exercise. Effort being put into a more measurable or quantifiable form. Load used in a lift, difficulty of the lift, movement or variation. How challenging an exercise is against your body in an overall muscle damage sense, with the aim to cause muscle damage to then promote muscle growth. I narrow the definition in this case because a trainee may perceive mentally that an exercise is intense or effortful just due to the exercise being mentally taxing to pull it off, or has a high technical skill ceiling, or accrues a lot of cardiovascular fatigue, or is a hard practice to recover from. But these factors are not always serving the goal or best serving to the goal of hypertrophy or muscle growth. Second pillar of the tonnage tier. Frequency. How often a certain muscle or group of muscles is trained on a daily, weekly, or monthly basis. This plays a prominent role in fatigue management, recovery, and creating the ideal amount of opportunities for muscle growth for your lifestyle needs and program needs. Third tenet of the tonnage tier is volume. This is most commonly understood as a number of sets, reps, and exercises assigned for a certain muscle group on a weekly or monthly or quarterly basis. Now, intensity, frequency, and volume are the three pillars of tonnage. And contrary to popular belief, volume is not the main driver of hypertrophy. Each of these variables plays a critical role in driving muscle growth. Each component is essential. Managing them is non-negotiable. However, to what degree each variable is more important than another one is going to relate to your own personal character, liking, life circumstance, or experimentation. Tonnage, and relevant tonnage in particular, is what natural lifters are constantly pursuing. Now, let me give you a quick example. Let's say you're doing a barbell bicep curl, and you're using 100 pounds, and you do 4 sets for 10 reps, and you do that 2 days a week. Now, the tonnage you've accrued for that week would be 8,000 pounds of tonnage. Now, let's say you did a barbell bicep curl with 10 pounds with 20 sets for 20 reps 2 times a week. You'd also be coming out to 8,000 pounds of tonnage for that week accumulated. Let me ask you this, to all my experienced trainees. Out of these two scenarios, which one has the relevant tonnage versus the fluff and pump or sandbag tonnage? If you answered the first scenario, ding, 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 you are right. Both of these scenarios equate to the same tonnage on paper, but in reality, the quality of stimulus and the ability to take the exercises to proper failure is what makes the entire difference. So I could be using some pink dumbbells, some baby weights, and I could pump that out for 200 reps until my biceps feel like they're going to pop out of my skin. But that's not going to actually necessarily give me enough stimulus to actually make my muscles break down and want to grow reliably. I am sooner going to reach mental failure where the sensation of the pump is so uncomfortable that I can't continue the exercise. That's what I call mental failure. Or the pump is literally so juicy, so much blood flow in your bicep that you just can't actually curl your arm anymore. That's what's called mechanical failure. But the actual failure we're looking for is true failure or muscle failure. And when you're using a heavy, challenging weight, there's going to come a point where you're not going to be able to complete the exercise. But that's literally just because your muscle is tired out too much to complete the rep properly. So that's one that we're chasing. And it's the percent chance of you being able to get to proper failure. Generally speaking, the heavier you go, the less close you need to be to true failure. If you're doing a more moderate to lightweight rep range, you have to get all the way there until you cannot finish that rep. If you're doing a more heavy, lower rep range, it's typically going to be a little bit more wear and tear on your joints, but the amount of muscle fibers that you're bringing into the mix to move a heavier weight is going to more reliably give your muscles enough stimulus to be broken down and to grow. Tier 6. The first tenet of Tier 6 is self-awareness. Being able to take an honest inventory of what you're doing well in your training sessions and what you're not doing well. Are you consistently focused on getting to failure? Pushing progression? What muscle groups are your aesthetic strong points? What muscle groups are lagging behind? Is your training properly addressing your weak points? Are you giving those weak points enough isolation? Are you working hard enough? Are you resting enough? These are those aspects of self-awareness that you need to have a diagnostic of in your training experience. Next on up, exercise selection. The exercises that are your regular bread and butter exercises should be easy enough to access. They should have a reasonable to low effort of setup because your energy, mental focus, and time ought to go into the exercise itself. The whole body should have exercises that will build a full, well-rounded physique. Time-tested movements should be prioritized over new, shiny, fat exercises. Compound movements will build the majority of your physique, but isolation exercises, particularly for body parts that you want to build up or emphasize, should be reflected in your exercise selection. Exercises that are easy to add more load over time / progressive overload are the best to select. Experiment to find exercises that you enjoy, can move well through in the long term, and engage well with. Movement patterns you'll need to build a full physique are a horizontal push, a vertical push, a vertical pull, a horizontal pull, a knee flexion or squat pattern, a hip hinge, a bicep curl, a tricep extension, preferably overhead, just so you can get that long head of that tricep. I mean, people can do rope pull downs or push downs as much as they want, and I mean, you're going to get some tricep growth, but if you're doing any pushing exercises, you're going to be getting your lateral head of the tricep. Most folks are missing out on their long head of the tricep, which is going to add the most meat to the back of their arm. So you're going to want to do something that goes behind that. It could be standing up, it could be bending over with a pulley, but bending that elbow behind your head and over, right? To get a nice beefy tricep. Shoulder isolation and ab isolation. I don't care what anybody says about, if you're doing heavy enough weight, you're going to be bracing that core. You don't build a nice, blocky, deep, chunky core or like nice, defined, pretty core by just bracing it. It's like trying to build your biceps from just flexing all day. Isolation in that way, it can build some muscle endurance, but for growth, your muscle tends to respond well to stretch. So your abs are kind of like an accordion. They like to open up all the way and close all the way. So exercises that are going to allow the chest to go toward your pelvis are going to be prioritizing the top four abs, and exercises that are going to be moving your pelvis to your chest are going to be working your bottom four or bottom two and then your middle ab in priority. But either case, I don't care who you are, figure out an ab exercise that you enjoy and train your abs if you want pretty abs. Unless you want pebbles, and then you have to be at a super low body fat percentage. It's in your best interest to have big enough abs that are going to show through your skin, even when you're at a slightly higher body fat percentage, so you look beach body ready without starving yourself. Right? For extra credit, I'd say put in some forearm and calf isolation. Now I know most naturals be lagging on their calves, me included. They've grown a lot from using barefoot shoes, weighing myself down with some weight and just doing a lot of repetitions. But forearms and calves, I'm trying to bring these forearms up. It's taking some time, but you can never have too big forearms as a natural dude. I mean, as they say, forearms are like a man's cleavage. So you gotta be seeing your forearms all the time, no matter what type of shirt you're wearing, regular t-shirt or so on. So forearm and calf isolation is going to be extra credit, and your body will pay some aesthetic dividends for having that in your mix. Next on up, adaptability. Your ability to make your training happen even when everything doesn't go your way. Getting enough training days done even in a busy week or when your usual training timing doesn't line up. Completing a movement pattern even when your favorite machine or implement is taken in the gym, right? Being willing to make small tweaks over time to redefine or to refine your program as you progress or your needs change. Or being able to have clarity of mind after giving exercises their proper time to add a variation, change a variation, or decide if something in your program isn't or is truly no longer working. Tier 7, larger exercise selection factors. That's what this tier is about. It's basically how to make a more discerned or more asserted look at exercise selection and what's going to be most important when selecting your bread and butter exercises in your training program. Tier 7. Mentioned briefly earlier, but of the three, in my opinion, the first most important factor for exercise selection is accessibility. Accessibility. At the end of the day, you won't perform an exercise that is not in your reach or has way too much setup time. And remember that adherence and consistency are of the most important training variables of all. Next one would be, I think, optimization. As much as what's or what's not optimal is discussed on YouTube Fitness, the concept is super overrated. And often, it's just used as a sales gimmick or for clicks. Much of what's presented as optimal is usually some outlandish, super niche, hyper-specific exercise that might, and I mean might, target one small specific muscle group well, while neglecting so much of the rest of the body. Oftentimes, it's something high in technicality and really low in effort or weight or stimulus. It's funny how this super hyper technical iliac pull down is people always using super light weights. If you're gonna get super hyper technical, save that for when you're like an advanced. You really know how to recruit that muscle well and how to push it hard. Until you know how to work hard in your sets and know how to work hard in your just training, generally speaking, on the isolations and the compounds for years, keep those really gimmicky, super technical exercises out of your mix. And simply put, no one can change their body into something amazing naturally without working hard. What's truly optimal are exercises you like, are accessible, that you can train hard, and can recruit as much of the body reasonably while stimulating the intended muscles as desired for growth, right? People will say, too much of this other muscle is coming in when you're doing this certain exercise. Well, is it a nice, heavy, time-tested workout that builds more than just that one part? I mean, when you're doing a pull-up, yeah, you're getting your upper back, but you're also getting some shoulder, especially like your rear delt. You're getting some bicep going on. Ain't nothing wrong with getting some overlap. I mean, we're not just trying to build one small aspect of our body. We're trying to build a full physique, and especially if you're a skinny young man or a skinny young lady that's trying to put some shape on their body, you have to figure out how to get some more stimulus systemically in order to build that full physique, because every part of your body needs its proper time. So more overlap, that's some relevant, hardworking, stimulative sets, the better. Next on up, as far as exercise selection goes, this is number 3, and honestly, I think this one is underrated, but it's enjoyment. Training isn't always initially fun, but you can learn to love the process and what the process is doing to you, right? Training effectively is hard. You have to really push yourself every session. Part of what can make more of those sessions fun, exciting, or get you motivated to train is selecting exercises or forms of training that you enjoy. That exercise you think looks so cool, or that movement that feels great to move through, or get a personal record on, right? If you think an exercise is lame, then find an exercise that targets those same muscles or movement pattern that you think is fun or cool. We're not training for the short term, we're training for life. So you might as well enjoy it, right? Tier 8. This is where we start to get more philosophical, if you will. First tenet inside tier 8 would be vocation. As you train, it will be up to you to discover what form of training you're drawn to or have a passion for. Perhaps bodybuilding is not the form of training that lights your flame. Perhaps you like bodybuilding, but you have a deep passion for general strength. Maybe it's calisthenics, martial arts, strongman, powerlifting, parkour, free running. Whatever the physical discipline, find yours and train. Lift. And don't allow a particular discipline purist sucker you out of lifting or stunt your growth from being a well-rounded and developed masterpiece. There's people that are the calisthenics only bros, so they just end up totally skipping their legs, or the powerlifters, and they get a sick chest and maybe some good legs, but then they have spider spaghetti arms, right? I've been working hard to try to fill out these long arms of mine, right? We don't want to just be beholden to a particular discipline if that's going to mean that we're not well-rounded individuals, right? Second one in the tier 8 list. Archetype. Form a vision for the sort of statue you want to create. What characteristics does your statue emphasize? Maybe it's a bear mode physique, as popularized by Alex Leonidas, where the yoke and the outer extremities are emphasized, aiming to look more full and imposing when wearing everyday clothing. Maybe it's that lean, athletic Fight Club physique, which emphasizes being aesthetic and yet very relatable to men and women alike. Maybe it's a more extreme physique, with inspirations from the Fawny's Hercules, like the berserker physique as popularized by natural hypertrophy. Start dreaming and make it a reality. Perhaps you're a young woman who after puberty you hadn't quite looked as much like the woman you thought you would, and you desire a more mature, shapely physique, like that of superheroes, statues, or paintings. The same extends to the skinny young men out there who have reached the age of manhood but still feel like you're in a body more fitting for a boy. I'm going to get ahead of myself, but I believe that strength training, physical culture, or bodybuilding can serve as a second puberty for men and women alike. But I'll save the details for that for another video. Ooh, let me not give that one away. Okay, I'm gonna keep it right there. All I can say is, or all this to say, it will grow, change, and modify like your archetype, your image, the statue you're trying to build. All this to say, create a picture of your goal physique. It will grow, change, modify, and develop as you do. And know that with an image or goal in mind, a plan to get there, and the will to take action towards it, you actually can shape your body into your personal masterpiece. Next on up is specialization. After putting some consistent quality training years in, and your proper intermediate, late intermediate, or advanced trainee, you could look into specializing in a key lift. When specializing, you will shape your program to allow for the most efficient and aggressive progression for that specific lift. Feeding your most potent volume into that lift and organizing your recovery around it for continuous growth. I've seen folks do bench specialization for 2 years until their bench is like 415, right? That's going to pay some crazy dividends on your chest and your triceps. Or pull-up specialization. Whatever your specialization is, your program is going to start to model around that. But I'd say instead of getting super hyper-specific into specialization in the early game of your lifting journey, save that up. Save that up until you build that foundation. And then as you get into those more experienced stages, then look to specialize. It's going to be fun. You're going to see some rapid progress in that particular lift. And it's going to give you some sick strength carryover in the long run. Tier 9, training maturity. It's super important, but likely the least relevant for most lifters. As the name suggests, training maturity will become more relevant as you go along in your training journey. The quality of your muscle, the staying power, and the overall look or tonality of your muscle will improve with training age, and with it, muscle maturity. Muscles will become more defined, have more staying power, and your body will be less inclined to lose this muscle so long as you give relevant training and it's consistent. It usually won't take as much effort to maintain that muscle as it took to build it, but nonetheless, you need to give it something to keep that muscle there. Quick anecdote, didn't expect to talk about this one. I think it was Leroy Colbert, who was the first one to hit 20-inch arms as a natural. Of course, he wasn't he wasn't crazy lean, but he was very lean for his time. I'm talking 16 to 18% body fat at the highest, and homie's arms were crazy. Even when he was an old man, he was still had not 20-inch arms. He had over 18-inch arms, yeah, as a natural, which is pretty madness. But even as an old man, he was training once or twice a week, and his arms were still sick. I mean, they were mogging most folks that have been in the game for a very long time. He's an old man, right? Now, where was I? Oh. You'll start to know your own body better, how to engage your individual muscles better when you've trained sufficiently for the day. So there'll come a point where you're like, yep, I definitely put in enough juice on that muscle for it to grow. You'll know when you've trained sufficiently for the day and when to go for a PR or when to do a back off set, or when to call a session, or some sets early. Maybe someone doesn't feel right. You know you're gonna get snapped up if you keep doing another set. As you become more mature in your training journey, you're gonna start to be able to recognize these signs much sooner. Sometimes it's just an intuitive sign that you get. Sometimes it's something that's more physical. You'll become an expert of your body and how it moves. And that wisdom that you've developed over time will have carryover into other areas of your life and even to other trainees. Training maturity is the training variable more than any other that you should look. That should be the one that you are most patient with and that you look at with a 1,000-mile view, knowing that you'll be developing this for your lifetime. Well, let's see. Cool, this video was only a little over 30 minutes or so. Glad we were able to keep it under 40 minutes. Ladies and gentlemen, I love sharing this presentation with you, and if you feel so inclined, like, comment your thoughts or questions, save, share, take care, God bless, and happy training. Peace.